Hello, and welcome to another Gaia subtractive synthesis video. You don't have to have a Gaia, any subtractive synthesis will do in recreating these sounds. Today we're building the Fender Rhodes piano. So again, I have my big old 88 key piano MIDI cabled in to the Roland. So I'm playing this, but you're hearing the Roland. And today I'm going to demonstrate this sound, then I'm going to erase it from the synthesizer, and we're going to recreate it. So here we go. I'm going to give you a little demonstration of the Rhodes piano here. And in all apology to Rhodes piano players, this is no substitute for what you got. This is the best I could do with the Roland. And it sounds somewhat like a Rhodes, but all the beautiful textures and all that dynamic barking that it can do when you play it dynamically. I'm not quite there, but this is still just a good lesson in subtractive synthesis using the Rhodes piano or Fender Rhodes piano as an example, depending on what year model you have. So here we go. And you can hear there's some vibrato in there, and I have some effects on there too. So what I was demonstrating is the way I've got this set up, we can actually control the Fender Rhodes from just a few simple settings now that everything's been programmed in here. So if we want to get rid of the vibrato, all I have to do is take the fade time of the vibrato, stick it up past the dynamics, and it's gone. I'm also going to turn the effects off so you get to hear what the actual synth is doing here. It's not a Fender Rhodes, but it's still a very playable instrument that we're going to create. So you can still use it as a piano, electric piano. So it's just a simple one slider. You can put the vibrato in. And push of a button, you can put the effects in. And the slider gives you the option of having a vibrato right at the beginning, or to fade in slowly. Put the vibrato as a tail at the end. And it's all done with just one slider after we're all programmed. Okay, so let's go to the Roland now, and we're going to erase it, and I'm going to show you how to build this sound. Okay, we're back at the Roland now. And I got a sustain pedal hooked up to the Roland. You won't be able to create this sound very well without the sustain pedal, because the sustain pedal is part of the way I'm setting this up, because we have to play. You don't want to play this piano without a sustain pedal. So here we go. I'm going to I've got this Rhodes. Rhodes is on patch number 6. I'm going to keep this one for reference this time. I'm going to switch to number 8, and I'm going to erase that. I'm going to hold down to cancel, click right. Everything's erased. We are back to a simple sawtooth wave with nothing done to it. I've reset this. I've reset all my controls back to neutral, and we're ready to start the new one. The reason I set it back to neutral is so you can see exactly what the synth is doing. You need to watch. This is Gaia synth tutorial number 6. You need to go back and see 1 through 5 to keep up. If you're going to start in the middle, you're going to get lost. So I'm not going to spend. I don't want to spend 5 minutes explaining what I've done so far, because I've already done that in the videos 1 and 2 of the Gaia. So now we just want to get started building our Rhodes piano now. And the first thing we're going to do to build our Rhodes is we're going to select which oscillator wave we're going to use. And I've chosen the square wave as the closest one to the Rhodes sound. And then next we're going to go to the amplifier envelope, and we're going to create the piano sound by see, some of these controls are still not in neutral. That's why we're getting the effects. This is the nature of a digital synthesizer over the analog, is the controls don't reflect what you're doing until you send them back to neutral, and this is the neutral setting. Next I'm going to hit this 24 dB slope on the filter, and you'll hear what that does when we go back to the filters. But right now I'm just using the K rate on the envelope to recreate the piano dynamics. And the other thing is, I found that even though you want it to release fast, to play staccato notes, but the Fender Rhodes is a mechanical and an electronic instrument. You actually have hammers hitting a string, and then the string has a pickup that's amplified. So we need to, you know, we're not going to have a big release on there like that, but we are going to have a small release that you can't even really hardly hear, because it's going to smooth out the keys a little bit. It's not something you can actually hear right now. But without this, when you actually start to play the instrument, it doesn't play accurate. It doesn't, the release is so fast that it doesn't sound good. So that's why we're putting the release on here now. Now, the object of this dynamic with the decay is now we're going to use a sustain pedal and see. We're going to see how they blend together. If you have your decay too long, it gets too blurry. So we're looking for just the right decay to emulate the Rhodes with a sustain pedal pressed down. So let's go to the filter with its new slope here. Now we're going to be switching octaves all the time. That's why I first played this on the 88 key, because this is actually a very narrow keyboard to be setting up a very wide range instrument. So it's very difficult to do this on the Roland because of the limitation of the number of the keys. So if you do have a longer instrument that you can MIDI cable in, that's what you want to play. But we're going to work with this. We're going to work with this one today. So I think I got the dynamics pretty good. So we have our decay set here, and we have a slight amount of release. I've got the cutoff at about 2 o'clock and resonance about 7 o'clock. We're using the low pass filter now, and that's what we've done so far. Now we're going to be dealing with dynamics, but this is going to be the most difficult part of recreating the Rhodes, is the dynamics. And now we have some behind the panel control here for dynamics. So first we can control the dynamics of how the filter cutoff works. That means this is velocity sensitive, or a version of velocity switching, if you're familiar with velocity switching. The harder I play the key, the more the filter is going to cut in, depending on how I set it. And also the dynamics of the volume also will depend on how we set this. So we're going to control first the volume. So I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm going to turn the volume amp all the way up. That means we have dynamics from where I press the key down, you don't hear anything, to when you press the key as hard as you can, you get the highest volume. Now these dynamics are almost impossible to play, because when you play a Rhodes soft, you want to hear it. So I'm holding down the shift key, and I'm going to turn this to the 2 o'clock position. Now, I'm still not working. So I'm going to hold down Shift key, and now I'm going to turn this to the 10 o'clock position. And this is the most playable for the Rhodes. It'll let me play soft, and it'll let me play hard. Next, we're going to set the dynamic or the velocity sensitivity of the cutoff filter. So we're going to hold the Shift key down, and I'm going to turn that to the full right, so I get the maximum amount of dynamics from my filter that you can't hear right now because we don't have any filter envelopes set. So we're going to, in the filter envelope, we're going to match the amplifier envelope. Now we're going to use the envelope to use up for the dynamics. So on the 0 envelope depth, no matter how hard I press, there's no dynamics. But since we set the cutoff to maximum dynamics, as soon as I put a little envelope in here, soon I press harder and harder on the key, I'm starting to get those dynamics. So now I play soft, but as soon as I and this is how we get some of that Rhodes dynamics. That's why with the Rhodes you can play soft on one hand That's what made it such a great lead instrument. As soon as you start playing with dynamics, it really comes alive. But at the same time, when you play soft, you still get that nice soft instrument. And that's what we're trying to recreate here in the Rhodes. And that's what we got so far. So we've recreated the dynamics now. And we're going to try and help some of that. We want some of that dynamics in the lower octaves, but we don't want that much. So here we go with the key follow again. The key follow is gonna there's all the way to the left, all the way to the right. You can change that sound and still keep the lead. So I'm going with a key follow of position about 1 o'clock. Now the Roland, being a synth keyboard, it's kind of hard to control the dynamics. We're on this, on my 88 key, which is weighted. It makes it an absolute pleasure to play. But this light synth action on the Roland keyboard makes playing a piano very difficult. So if you're serious about using this sound, you really should have a weighted keyboard to control it. Okay, so we just put a little key follow in there to take that gritty sound out of the bass, and the key follow will still keep the nice sharp and higher frequencies in the right hand. So now we're getting a pretty good Rhodes sound with just this one tone. But it's not, we got a little bit of bark in there, but it's not, we're not done yet. So I'm going to do a tone copy from 1 to 3. Now I got a duplicate of 3. 1 and 3 are a duplicate. I did that just to give us a stereo effect. We're going to pan those, and a little bit of detuning again. This little bit of detuning just it takes the perfection of this synthesizer and makes it a little less imperfect. And there was tuning on the Rhodes, and I'm sure that it wasn't tuned absolutely perfect all the time. Right now, the synthesizer, being an electronic instrument, starts off exactly and perfectly in tune. And we don't want that for this instrument. So we're going to take number 3, we're going to detune that just a little bit. One little notch there. And then we're going to take tone 103, and so I'm detuning 1 up a little bit. I'm detuning 1 down a little bit. Now when we play these together, well, that was too much. That's better. So now with both of these tones, they're actually amplifying each other. So now we got a much bigger bark. So now we can probably we're going to edit both, and we can take our key follow and smooth that up a little bit more on the bass. If you play the bass soft, you still get it, but as you play dynamically and harder, you get that little bit of bark going again. And that pretty much completes the sound. And as an option that I gave you at the beginning, I showed you there was a little vibrato going on. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to edit both of these, and we're going to add some amplifier depth here. We're adding some amplifier vibrato. And then we're going to take the fade time and we're going to make it fade in later. Now, as the fade time exceeds the decay time of the amplifier, watch how I'll push it up past the, I'll push my fade time for my vibrato, which is coming from the low frequency oscillator. It's past the decay of my amplifier. It's gone. It won't take effect until you bring it down, and right now it's going to be at the very tail end of the dynamics. I don't know if you heard that, but it just started at the very end. Now I can bring it down a little bit more. Now you can hear it. So as long as it's below the dynamics of the amplifier, you'll hear the vibrato. I'm going to take the fade time all the way up and take it out of there while we're editing though. Okay. Okay. Let's do some reviewing on this, on our first two tones that we set up, because it's quite complicated. We're using things that aren't showing on the dial, like the dynamics. I hope everybody's getting these dynamics. It's velocity sensitive. Harder I press the key, the louder the amplifier gets, and we set that by pressing Shift and setting an amplifier at around the 10 o'clock position. So as we press the key harder, it gets louder. Then we have the velocity sensitivity of the cutoff, and we pressed the Shift key down and we turn the cutoff all the way to the right. And that, here we have a duller sound, and the harder we press the key, the brighter it gets. So that gives us that Rhodes dynamic. So we get a nice soft, and we get that really hard bark. Then we also set the vibrato. We set the vibrato for both these tones. Put a little delay so it's just at the tail, and for now we turn the fade time up, and the fade time is higher or slower than the decay time, so you don't hear it. That's the way we have it set right now. Very important to get the 24 dB slope, and then your Rhodes sound, how bright or how so when you're playing softly, the cutoff is setting how do you want that soft one to sound, and then the filter opens up completely when you play dynamically and use the velocity to get it. And that's basically where we're at. We did a slight detune of each one, and we did a slight pan. That's the left one. That's the right one. Don't really hear it that much because it's there's not that much panning there, and I didn't want that much panning in there because we're still trying to make the Rhodes. But when you pan, you separate a little bit of that tone, and it gets a little more distinctive. So that's where we're at. Then we saved it with these two on, right? So that we could use the fade time together. When it's finished, we can use the fade time at any one of these settings to get the vibrato. If we want vibrato, if you don't want it, it's not there. As long as this fade time's all the way up, you won't get any. And that's the review. Now let's go to the tone 2. We're going to tone 2. We're going to reset all our controls so that the synthesizer is displaying what we're playing. We're going to use we use the square waves on our tones 1 and 3 to create the Rhodes, but for the bite, I'm going to use the bitiest wave I got, and that's the sawtooth. This very top one. So we're going to start with the amplifier and we'll do the same thing. We'll put that decay in there. Now those dynamics we set, the velocities we set for the filter and the amplifier on 1 and 2, you can independently set those for each tone. So we're going to press the cancel, shift cancel. We're going to set our filter velocity for maximum, turn that all the way to the right, and the amplifier, we're going to set that at the 3 o'clock position. Now, we had it at the 10 o'clock for our main tones. Now that we're on 3, when I press really light, there's no tone at all. So now we can get that bite when playing dynamically. But when we play softly, tone 1 and 3 will come through without that dirtiness of that coming on. Now we can use key follow again. If you use the filter and resonance. Let's see what it sounds like without doing any filter change to this at all. Oh, we do need to bring up the release. Okay, here we go. Everything turned on now. Softly, you should not hear tone 2. But when we go dynamic, you can hear it. Let's turn that off. So this final sawtooth is actually adding we got the softness and the bark of the Rhodes. Now we just want to add some effects. We can turn those on and off, of course. Rhodes doesn't come with effects. But we're going to add a panning delay to try and move together with it's going to move together a little bit with our LFO. And we're going to set the controls for delay, control 1 at 9 o'clock and control level at 12 o'clock. So there it is off. Just a little thickening. We're going to add a little reverb, just a very little, at 9 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Control 1 at 9 o'clock, level 1 at 9 o'clock. And of course you can just hit the off switch when you want this to sound more clean like the Rhodes. But in a mix you might want the and now we're going to save it. I'm going to write it with tone 1 and 2, 3 with the edit lights on. So now we can control how much vibrato. You can have it at the very beginning and all the way through. You can put it at the end, or you can slide it all the way up and not have it at all. And of course, also we're saving it with these two edits, not just for the vibrato, but by turning the cutoff, you can change your tone too, just like you could on the Rhodes. So let's again write it with our new effects. So now that's saved. Anytime you hit this button, you can come back. So between the key follow, the cutoff, and resonance, you can now change your Rhodes sound. And that's the control you have. We have our vibrato control now. As we slide this up and down, it can go away, or and we have our cutoff and resonance and key follow to modify our original setting, which will always be there now. And that's the Rhodes piano. Have fun, and thank you very much.